Hey guys, my name is Colson Rosa, and welcome to Seraphim Stories. Today, I wanted to talk to you guys about why creative writing is so important and why I love it so much. So the first thing to point out is that our lives are surrounded by creative writing. We often don't realize this, but when we look at movies, TV shows, books, so many different mediums, you see that creative writing takes an important place in all of them, and there's a writer somewhere behind the scenes crafting all those stories that we've grown to love. Sometimes we don't even realize this. We don't even realize how creative writing is important even in podcasts or radio shows and so many other different sources of entertainment that we get. But before we talk about creative writing, not only from an entertainment aspect, but also from how it can really affect our lives and that aspect of motivation and inspiration it can give us, I want to quickly point out how creative writing is different from both nonfiction and from formal writing. So if you look at it kind of as three different categories, let's start with formal writing. That's the one a lot of us are probably very familiar with. It comes in school textbooks, it comes in even scientific journals and news briefings, basically anything that requires research. Now, that's not to say nonfiction and creative writing don't require research sometimes, but formal writing is meant to be academic, it's mostly essays, and this kind of writing is incredibly important. Now, I don't want to minimize how important formal writing and nonfiction are. I just want to point out the differences between them. A lot of people could say, why do we need creative writing if we can have formal and then nonfiction writing, which are going to much more easily affect our lives in the sense of higher academic study. But what I want to present to you guys is that creative writing can actually affect our lives in many different brilliant ways, even though it's not as formal. So you compare formal writing even to something like nonfiction, which is written in a very different style. It's written with a lot more illustrations and maybe even allegories, but it's always based on what's really happened. And authors, even when they're writing nonfiction, will often add their own biases or their own inflections toward what they're writing about. But at the end of the day, it's a true story. Based on a true story, you often see that in some movies. And that kind of storytelling is incredibly important to relate us back to history. So nonfiction you often see is based on real events, and it's based on things that have actually happened. And nonfiction also doesn't take many liberties with the types of stories that it tells. It tries to tell it based on what has actually happened, and it tries to tell the most factual account that it can. Now, creative writing is different. Creative writing, you get to explore your imagination, you get to seek to inspire others with the unique stories you get to tell. And I think that's one of the things that really sets it apart, because as important as formal and nonfiction writing are in our lives, they can't take up the whole market, because people need hope. People need inspiration in their day-to-day lives, and they also need inspiration to take those leaps of faith, take those next big steps that they might not have the courage to take in that moment. And imagination is actually an excellent way to do that. So a lot of people think imagination is for younger kids, and then it's a skill that we should kind of lose when we become adults. But I don't think that's the case, because I think imagination helps us to look at the world around us and decide how we should view it, and also decide unique ways to solve the problems that it's been facing. So for example, if you look at a story like Chronicles of Narnia from C.S. Lewis, you see examples of seemingly regular kids or teenagers who go into a world completely foreign to them, and they then learn how to adapt that kind of situation. And they get to remove themselves from the stresses of their lives at home, but they also get to help save people that are really hurting, that need a lot of help in the land of Narnia. And it's more than just escapism. I want that point to be made very clear, because escapism says that the only point of imagination is to get away from the world that you're in. Where actually, imagination not only allows us an escape, which is fun and enjoyable, but it also gives us a sense of unique perspective. It gives us a sense of taking characters and learning from them. Even looking at our own life decisions and saying, how do they compare to the ones these characters have been facing? If I was in a similar situation, how would I react? And thinking about motivation as brave heroes who are willing to stand up for what is right. And that's the kind of motivation we need to have and the next generations need to have, because they need to have that hope that realizes that we can rise above the challenges we face. And creative writing also has many important things to say when it comes to ethics. There's the classic example of good versus evil. You look at Star Wars, you look at Harry Potter, you look at so many different clear-cut stories where it's good versus evil and good triumphs in the end. Now, there's plenty of other stories that take a twist on that trope, and they say, well, in the real world, sometimes good doesn't always win. Sometimes evil wins the battle, but it may never win the war. And I think that's what it's important to say through creative writing, is that we will, in the end, work to see a better future, and we're going to try to as best as we can. We're going to learn what is right and what is wrong, and even our own consciences can tell us in movies and in stories what is right and what is wrong often. Now, that's not always the case, but either way, when you see a character lying or cheating or stealing, you often know that those things aren't right. They're not how it's supposed to be done. And there's a higher road that can be taken, which could be one reason why a character like Captain America has become so popular, because of the ways that he stands above the crowd and does what's right, or even a character like Superman. Now, it's very easy to then say, well, those characters are fake because nobody ever lives that perfectly. And in a sense, you're right. It's very hard to make those characters seem so flawless, which is why as you watch the stories progress, flaws begin to be shown in their characters that they then have to wrestle through, and they have to work with other flawed people. We tend to realize what the right things are that need to be done and how to get them done, and how to even look at the problems that these characters go through and recognize that we make some of the same mistakes, and we can always be improving ourselves. I hope to always be improving myself as an author. And I come to learn through creative writing what characters I relate to, what characters I may not relate to, but I see the importance of them being in the story because they offer a different kind of perspective that I never would have considered. So I hope that as you guys look at the world of creative writing, you come to realize that it has a lot of benefits that are separate and distinct, different from both nonfiction and formal writing. It can offer inspiration and imagination, going to worlds you never would have considered, helps us even consider the world we want to live in, how we can make it a better place. Learning from these stories, not only learning from the life decisions of the characters, but learning genuine history, genuine facts, genuine truths that are much more appealing to learn sometimes through a creative writing setting, because you can then enjoy getting to learn about science, or getting to learn about art or philosophy or ethics or some of these bigger issues, but in a fun way where sometimes you don't even realize how much you're learning from them. And it can also help with your life decisions. You can come to recognize, why did an author make that character make that life decision. And you can wrestle through that, think through that, both with the heroes and the villains, and even those characters that seem to walk a moral gray line somewhere down the middle. And those moral gray lines are even important for us to realize as we come to think through what is right, what is wrong, what kind of ethics is this author presenting? Do I agree? Do I disagree? And how would I even have written the story differently? I think most authors, if they're being honest, are totally okay with people looking at their stories and wondering, how would I have done that scene? How would I have written it differently? Is that a plot hole? Is that not a plot hole? How would I have filled in those gaps? How would I have made that character's arc go from point A to point B, from maybe struggle to redemption? And if an author's being real, that's the kind of things they go through when they're thinking through a character and thinking through a scene and a description of why should it be the way that it is. And those kind of problems that are solved just help our minds work through even the decisions we're making in real life. And I hope you also realize that the way we view ourselves, the way we view others, and the way we view the world are influenced by creative writing, whether we know it or not. Throughout the course of your life, you're probably gonna come into contact with hundreds of stories and thousands of characters in so many different settings, so many different times, so many different places. But how we respond to those characters, how we love like they love, or laugh like they laugh, or maybe come to recognize that if we were in that situation, we would have done things differently, and that's totally okay. But I think that one of the most important things is to come to terms with a story, not just read it only for enjoyment, although you certainly should enjoy the story you're reading, but look deeper. Look for why a character is considered a hero or a villain. If there's two extremes, one extreme is perfectly good, one extreme is perfectly bad. Why do some characters fit so well into the middle, so well into the moral gray? I think of a character even like Severus Snape, who's become a fan favorite in a lot of Harry Potter circles because it's so hard to put a grip on who he's siding with in any given moment. And then the big reveal at the end just ties it all together so nicely. So I hope you guys think about the fact that you, your family, your friends, and even the next generations are going to be informed about a lot of things about the way life works through the creative writing they come in contact with. And I hope that inspires each of us to take a deeper look at why do we have creative writing in society? Why do we have it in our culture? And why do we love it so much? What movies should we support? What movies should we not support by going out to the theaters? What books should we buy? What books should we not buy? And if anything, this just gives me a greater love for reading, for writing, for being engaged in stories, letting them challenge me to grow as a person and especially to grow as an author. So guys, I hope you really liked the video. I was so excited to get to talk about this topic. It's one that's near and dear to my heart and hopefully is to yours as well. So I want to just thank you guys so much. If you're ever looking for a place to get great new stories, you could check out my books on Amazon or even follow my social media. And I'd love it so much if you guys would consider subscribing to this channel or liking this video just to help me keep putting out content like this. And guys, I want to thank you so much for your love of reading, your love of writing. Let me know in the comments if there's any stories you want me to talk about. I'm hoping soon to get to dive into a lot of famous stories, why they work, maybe what doesn't work about them, how the authors crafted them the way they did. So I want to thank you guys so much. Hope you have a great day.